Hello Anglophonians and welcome to another episode where we take a look at European comics, and today we return to a classic, Spirou, the Spirou magazine. Where we last left off, it was a bit of a dire situation, not only for the Spirou magazine but for Europe altogether. The World War II or Second World War, whatever you want to call it, the second big war, had broken out, and countries like Belgium or France got overrun by Nazi armies. Now, the original creator of Spirou was wounded and prisoner of war. So we now had Gigé replacing him, but at this point in the story, Robert Velté returned. So let's take a look at the Ventriloquist Horse. In 1940, the Dupuis publishing house received the news that Robert Velté was injured but still alive. By the time Gigé was writing the story of Spirou, he had plenty of time to bring the bellboy's adventures at the North Pole to an orderly conclusion. Because although Velté reported back, it was still half a year before he could start working again. In the Spirou magazine, which was published on March 20, 1941, a page drawn by Velté was printed for the first time in some month again. Spirou is looking for work and is going back to his roots in the process. He is looking for a job as a bellboy. On his way through town, he comes across a strange poster that appears to be able to speak. Of course, there are no talking posters. Behind it is a man named Cabrinus, who claims to be the best ventriloquist in the world. Spirou learns the art of ventriloquism from him. He can use this art right away when he queues up for applicants. He is hired to protect the Lord of Little Red Castle. It's about an inheritance dispute. The current lord of the castle, called Sosthenes, is to be robbed of his property. Spirou discovers that the servants in the house are not loyal to the lord of the castle. Then his companion Spip is kidnapped to blackmail him. Behind this is the brother of Lord Sosthenes, a certain Guntram. He is on the verge of ruin because he has taken over a horse stable. A big race is coming up and Guntram's horse needs to win. Of course, Guntram is also Spip's kidnapper, because all means are right for him. But Spirou also knows how to defend himself and uses his new talent for ventriloquism. One could say that Spirou returns to his roots here in several ways. On the one hand, he is working as a bellboy again. On the other hand, Robert Velté reintroduces his own style into the stories, which takes them very far into the realm of fantasy. Of course, the way Spirou uses the art of ventriloquism doesn't work that way in real life. Spirou lets objects and animals do the talking, mainly to harass the bad guys. In fact, one of the villains then considers whether it's really a picture speaking to him or his own guilty conscience. But at the same time, there were bad omens as well. The German occupation forces controlled very precisely what was published in the publishing houses under their care. The publishing house could be closed at any time by the German administration. And there was also a shortage of paper due to the war. During this time, the publishing house made a decision that has not been regretted to this day. Although the magazine Spirou was an invention of the publishing house boss Dupuis and his people, the character Spirou, however, who experienced new adventures every week, was created by Robert Velté. Velté therefore had the copyright to the bellboy's appearance. What would happen if the author was again prevented from doing his work? An exception has been made when Gigé stepped in. But what would be if this happened again in the future? That's why the publishers decided to buy the copyright for the character Spirou from Velthe. However, it took until December 1942 before agreement was reached. By then, the story of the Ventriloquist Horse was not only complete, but another one had started already. In fact, there was yet another one in between, but this is somehow complicated. We'll get to that. The sale of Spirou to the Dupuis publishing house was a blessing for Velthe, as it brought him money in troubled time. For the publisher, on the other hand, it was a risk, since nobody knew what would happen if the publisher were really to be closed down at the behest of German censorship. But Gigé, who replaced Velthe for a time, was also able to continue working on Spirou. He created graphics that were used for merchandise. This merchandise was given out, for example, to the members of the club Les Amis de Spirou, the Friends of Spirou, founded in 1938. The story The Ventriloquist Horse was published in Spirou magazine from March to October 1941. The next story should be something completely new again. To shed light on the situation again, in 1941 all of Central Europe, with the exception of Switzerland, was conquered by the German Reich or occupied by German allies. And during this year the war was extended again in many places. To support Italy in its invasion of Africa, Hitler orders the deployment of German troops in Libya. They succeed in an advance to Egypt. The invasion of the Balkans lead to the invasion of Crete and Greece. The sinking of the battleship Bismarck represents Hitler's weak point in the Atlantic. In Asia, Kuomintang Communist Corporation ended in the war against Japan. The Battle of Britain, the German aerial warfare to conquer Britain, ended in favor of the Royal Air Force. With the withdrawal of German troops from France to the east, London is literally breathing again. On June 22, Hitler launched Operation Barbarossa against the Soviet Union, who had been a contract partner for a while. In mid-August, parts of the rapidly advancing Wehrmacht turned southeast towards the Ukraine as far as the Crimea and north towards Leningrad. The United Kingdom, Great Britain and the USSR form an alliance. Great Britain and the USA agree on the Atlantic Charter. Japan can increase the pressure on China's supply routes by conquering southern Indochina as far as Malaysia. The Japanese advance in the Pacific comes to a halt in New Guinea. The German attack on the Soviet Union comes to a standstill in front of Moscow and Leningrad. And in the counter-offensive, the Allies gain ground for the first time. But the Second World War was to continue for another 4 bad years. Comic magazines such as Spirou should help the children of the conquered territories to lead something somehow similar to a normal life. So this is it. You see that the story is getting more and more coherent, not a big adventure made up of a series of small adventures, but a real storyline. And this will go on, especially when a new artist appears on the horizon, but we are not yet there. So see you next time.